All right, what's up, guys? Let's see here. Exciting week. We got college baseball coming back today, this week, or at least Division One. Right. I need to clarify that. What's up, Eugene? What's up, man? How you doing? Coog Sauce is back. Coog Sauce becoming one of the for real serious regulars. What's up? What's up, Sauce? What's up, dude? Obviously, guys, we got a lot going on. It's opening week. Please forgive me for snacking a little bit. I saw in one of my videos, guys were like, "Man, can you just like snack someone else some other time or eat some other time?" And part of me's like, "You guys understand how busy I am throughout the day? I mean, sometimes I skip lunch. So, you know, if I want to have a few snacks, I think most of you guys are okay with it." Okay, so here's the fun thing. Let's see here, for example. So obviously we got a lot of these games, these tournament style games coming up this weekend, dude. So one of the things I'm maybe on Friday. Let me see here. Um, like Clemson, Oklahoma State are playing at 12 p.m. So we can, we 12 like literally Friday we may do an earlier stream and just kind of watch party that Clemson Oklahoma State game for a while, right? Talk through some stuff, and then same day you got Virginia against Michigan at 1 p.m. And those are pretty much the early games. And then we'll play it by ear for maybe Saturday, see what we come up with, maybe Sunday. But Friday, there should be some really good games. One of the things I wanted to talk about, golly, man, one of the things I recognize that obviously I want to hear your guys' opinion on what you guys think. But looking at all these preseason rankings, especially from D1 baseball and everything like that, it seems like the ACC in particular, I think he had four of the top seven starting pitchers. So I mean, ACC pitching wise is going to be a monster. I mean, the most highly rated pitchers, and we'll go through that again. Let me pull it up real quick. Okay, cool, good question. So for like a watch party in general, the issue is I cannot stream it live. Like I can't stream the game. I wish I could. That'd be awesome. I'll just get hit with all kinds of copyright stuff on YouTube and everywhere. So in theory, what we would do is I would post in the stream like we're doing let's call it the Clemson Oklahoma State uh, watch party. I think that's the game, right? Yeah, Clemson Oklahoma State at 12 p.m. on Friday. So I say, hey, we're doing a watch party at 12 p.m. for the Clemson Oklahoma State game. We all individually kind of pull up the game. We're all watching it at the same time and we're discussing it, which is what a lot of guys do for football. A lot of guys do for basketball. And what my plan is this year to do for like a game or a couple, maybe two games a week, maybe one, just depends on like the timing and everything like that. But that's how it would work. Is we would basically just all watch the game at the same time. And then just like you guys tell me what you're seeing, what you think. Did they make a bad decision, a good decision? And I'll give you my opinion on it. Graham, what's up, dude? How you doing, man? Dude, I can't, like, it's weird to me. Let's see here. Okay, there we go. Do you guys like it without music or with music? Like, do you like a little bit of a quiet music or none? I need to know. I need to know. Canes, gentlemen, the talking is that's right. The talking's over. Now we're in, you're in, and just to give you guys an example, just to give you guys an idea of kind of what's going on in practice week to week during the season. So obviously you're in a lot of these games. Obviously Monday. So today is typically an off day in college baseball. So typically, the guy, like I've told you guys before, the guys that care, they're still going in, getting work done, Getting a workout in the weight room, getting their hitting done. Because you just in base, like the thing is this. There's a double-edged sword to this. So in college, it's nice that you only play like typically it's like 4 games a week. You will have some 5-game weeks if you play a Tuesday, Wednesday. But all right, Graham, I'm gonna turn just a little bit of music on for you. Okay, try to turn it down as much as I can. There you go. But you're going to the thing that's good about it is like let's say you have a bad weekend or a bad week. Well, it's just 4 games and you kind of have some time to reset. You have that midweek game, but it's generally against a little bit lesser competition, especially Power Four level. So you have that midweek game to get tuned back up, and you still have a few days before you have to really kind of get going again. But the bad thing is like let's say you're on a hot streak and now you play Tuesday, now you have Wednesday, Thursday before that next game. And so like that Monday is crucial, especially for position players to come in, get whatever routine they want done with their hitting to make sure they're still on track. So today is typically an off day unless you're playing like a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then you'll take Sunday off and you'll practice on Monday. Week by week, I've been recalibrating my expectations because what I'm seeing reminds me of what I've seen before. And that's a regional host team. Whoa, big prediction there. Music is okay by me. Oh, by the way, guys, got the haircut. What do you guys think? Finally got the haircut. I mean, it was getting long back there. Right now, I am sky high on us. Hey, you know what? No game's been played. There's no reason not to be sky high. Music on low is fine with me. All right, nice. Thanks. What's up, Bill? Welcome back to the chat. I don't mind the music so long as it's low. Okay. Music off when we show videos. Yeah, that makes sense. Our Saturday starter has been ramping up week by week. He's finally sitting 93-95, which is a massive jump from 91-92 in the captain scrimmage. Yeah. That's good, man. Just have to see what they end up doing. But let's look at these. I think this is key, guys, for like that SEC ACC matchup and who's better and everything like that. Like let's just look at the the top starting pitchers in the game because we all know, right? All of us here know that just dominant pitching is always going to be. I'll say it like this: if you have a really dominant offense, you can still have like an okay year if your pitching is just terrible. Like you probably know in reference to what teams I'm talking about. But if your pitching is elite, it's like way higher percentage that you still have a really good year. So we're going to look at that in a second. Preseason number 3 JUCO lost all 4 games this past weekend. So much for the preseason rankings. Yeah, man. And you know what? The thing is they still could end up being a really good team, but sometimes like I said, every spring training, I felt amazing. I was raking. And then that first game of the season came around, I go 0 for 4, and I'm just like, what's going on? Sometimes teams are, they just start off really bad. Like think about baseball is all about, all right, do we have like maybe you almost never have all 9 hitters in your lineup just clicking, right? Typically it's like 3 or 4, and then you're hoping that your 5 guys behind them, wherever they are in the lineup, can just kind of have productive at bats, while the 3-4 guys are really 3 for 4 type games. But every once in a while, you have a team that totally is clicked and you just can't lose to anybody. And then sometimes you have a team that's totally like not playing well. So that's probably what happened to them. Regional would be a lock, I think, right now. I'm talking about hosting a regional for the 3rd time in 4 years. For the third time in 4 years? I'm not sure. I don't know what I'm getting. Canes, I'm misunderstanding what you're saying. You're saying Miami's a regional lock. That's what you're saying. Who are some good JUCOs to watch? I mean, think any JUCO in the Panhandle, Chipola, Northwest Florida, Gulf Coast State, even the ones in Alabama are really good. You got, Southern Union, Walters State. I mean, you got JUCOs you got JUCOs all over the country. Generally, the Panhandle is probably considered, give or take, the best JUCO conference maybe in the country. But year by year, it changes a little bit. We have depth for days, man. Chipola is very fun to watch. Deaver, I've watched few of their games. Yeah, they're struggling right now, 8-5 or 8-5. Sorry, are they losing 8-5? Or are they 8-5 on the year? That's the answer to Cougs. All right, let's look at the guys. Let's pull up the starting pitchers rankings according to Division One. So look, like this is interesting, right? So okay, we go Florida State, ACC one, Santa Barbara, mid-major over on the West Coast. Ryan Prager, A&M, so one for SEC. Then you got Aiden Knack, Clemson, ACC. Jason DeCaro, North Carolina. Gabe, I'm not even going to try to pronounce that name, Arkansas. Then you got Virginia, Oklahoma, Kansas, Oregon, Arkansas, Vandy, Arizona State, Nebraska, Evansville, Georgia, LSU, Alabama, Michigan State, Nate Snead, Oklahoma, Stanford, Virginia Tech, Ole Miss, Texas, Iowa, Arkansas, A&M, Tennessee, Mississippi State, TCU, West Virginia, Stanford. So you see, like right there off the bat, like 4 of the top 7 starting pitchers in the country. Now, again, these are your Friday type guys. Whenever you have a lockdown Friday guy, I mean, it's just a really high chance you're going to win on Friday, which is, again, you win Friday. If you don't win Friday, you can't sweep. So if you have that like lockdown ace on a Friday, it just makes it way more likely that you're going to be able to sweep series. So if with the ACC having some of the best Friday starters in the country, I mean, just that's a good sign for them. Now, obviously the SEC is pretty deep, right? We're seeing a lot of SEC and some ACC arms. Behind that, Louisville here, Georgia here. Stanford has a lot of these starting pitchers. Stanford's got like 3 starting pitchers in the top 43. North Carolina, Florida State, Florida, Southern Miss, Southern Cal, UC Santa Barbara, right? Like UC Santa Barbara is going to be really good. I mean, you have 2 starting pitchers in the top 52. Duke right here, Wake Forest, Virginia, Kennesaw State, East Carolina, Oregon State, Wake Forest, Tate McKee, Georgia Tech. So you just again in these lists, guys. I mean, there's a lot of these ACC pitchers, and in particular, again, you're just looking at if you think realistically, let's say at the Power 4 level, like not everybody is going to have a true Friday guy ace. Like a Jamie Arnold is like you're chalking up every Friday if you're Florida State as a win on paper because you have probably the best pitcher in the country. Excuse me while I snack a little bit. Mute that for a second. Okay. And obviously this guy think about this. Now some of these guys may be draft eligible sophomores, but if these guys can go year 3, these guys are top 5 in the country after freshman years. This is why I'm so high on UNC. 2 of their guys they have Jason DeCaro, who was a freshman last year, and let's find the other guy. He's down here somewhere in the 40s. He's in the 40s, I believe. Yeah, Folger Boaz, left-handed pitcher, freshman, 9 starts. But, dude, this is why I'm so high on UNC, because they have 2 freshman pitchers. I mean, Kyle Johnson from Duke. A lot of young pitchers in the ACC. Christian Lim, left-handed pitcher, sophomore, that are going to be really, even better this year. So it's going to be interesting to see just kind of how that impacts the overall season. Eight and 5 pitching for them is really bad. I mean, here's the deal, guys. Pitching's bad all across college baseball, and it's not. And I just mean the numbers. The numbers are really bad, but we all know the offensive climate. the offensive climate is not what it used to be, right? It's just like you make a mistake as a pitcher, you're getting cooked. And so again, it's just, it, now more than ever, it's more about, do you have a couple really good starters? And as long as you're giving up, like, if your team ERA is like around 5, you're in a really good spot if you're in like the ACC or the SEC. So if your team ERA is around 5, that's really good. Anything lower than that, and you have one of the best pitching staffs in the country. Just in this offensive climate. And again, when I was playing, if your team ERA was 5, I mean, it was going to be tough. Now, let's look at some of the stuff going around. I actually may be going to one of the games this weekend over at Georgia Tech. So obviously, I'll let you guys know what I see. But man, it's going to be exciting to see. I mean, and again, some of these. So guys, what I did I did another video today. It'll be coming out later on motor preferences. I'm going to do a whole, like, basically, I'm planning on doing 2 or 3 videos this week. So maybe one Wednesday, one Friday, to get through, over the next couple weeks, to get through all the categories that are laid out in the book, and that Matt Swope and David Janess lay out in some of the videos you can see online. But, the aerial versus terrestrial. Today, it's going to be about associated versus disassociated, and it gets a little bit more technical in this video. But my goal is to be kind of stay, I don't want to go like 2 miles deep into it in some of these videos yet. I want to be very surface level, just explain it so it's understandable on a very simple level. And then once we get through all the categories, circle back and then go really deep and explaining just kind of how these work. And again, the more, I'm basically all the way through the book now. And it is one of those concepts and one of those books, like, you're going to have to go back to it 3 or 4 times to be like, okay, yeah, when I'm talking about associate, let me look through that associated, disassociated section until you really have a good grasp for it. Like today, after doing the video, I felt like I really understood the kind of associated, disassociated, and then how it's connected to basically your breathing, your breathe in or breathe out, and what your preference is there. The book I'm talking about is right here, Deaver. Motor Preferences for Baseball. So this is let me give you a surface level explanation of kind of what this book is discussing and talking about. Is that you are born in the womb with motor. Like, if I told you, like, they bring this up in the book, but if I told you to cross your arms, you do it a certain way. And you do it that way every single time. So that's a motor preference. If I told you, no, you're doing it wrong. Cross your arms the other way. Now I have to, okay. You have to think about it. Like, now if you say cross your arms, you're just like this. Now do it the other way. You're immediately, it's foreign feeling. It doesn't feel right. It feels awkward. I have to really focus on just like doing this very simple thing, and it doesn't even feel right. Now that's how they explain, if let's say you're a terrestrial, and how you create force, which is basically, that's kind of the gist of it, is that an aerial versus a terrestrial creates force through the lower half, through the ground. Aerials create force through their shoulders, upper body, and they're much more comfortable in the air. So they're going to have longer strides. They're going to have longer, air time when they're running, stuff like that. I'm an aerial, just from, I read the book very quickly and I was like, I'm an aerial. And so that's a motor preference. It's not something that changes. It's something you were born with. And there's basically 13 categories of motor preference. I think it's 13 or 12. I'm not exactly sure. But the second one I go into is associated versus disassociated. So it talks about how, we as baseball people, for the longest time, we've talked about you want big hip shoulder separation, right? When you're swinging or throwing, I want my hips creating space, my shoulders staying back, and then after the space is created, now my shoulders come. Well, depending on how you are as a in your motor preferences, you may be an associated mover. An associated mover is someone who doesn't create a lot of hip shoulder separation just because of their motor preferences. Disassociated means your hips and shoulders are disassociated in movement, so you can create very large hip shoulder separation. Um, and I was definitely associated, meaning I'm an aerial, so I prefer extension. But because I'm a breathe out guy, I'm going to be associated. Um, or sorry, because I breathe out or breathe in. Think about this: when you breathe in, my chest is in vertical extension. When I breathe out, my chest goes into a flexion state. So basically, if you're an aerial who prefers extension, that's what aerials prefer, and you breathe out, which is extension of your chest, you're going to be an associated mover because there's just your extension. Whereas if I was an aerial and my preference was breathe out, so which is a flexion state of flexion, I'm going to be a disassociated mover because of those two things that are kind of in conflict. And I have to make sure I'm getting that right. I mean, I actually have it bookmarked right here. Um, Again, it is one of those books, guys, that you're gonna have to refer back to because it is like it. They do a great job of simplifying it, but it's also very. I mean, it's technical, right? It's technical. Um, yeah. So if you're an associated, you're either if you're a terrestrial, which is prefers flexion, and you breathe out, which is a flexion, or put your chest in kind of a flexion state, you're going to be associated. And that's kind of again, well, like in the video, it can go a little bit more in depth, or I do go a little bit more in depth. But the next thing we'll cover is axial versus large. I highly recommend that book if you're a parent of a player or you are a player to help you understand things. Because for me, what clicked with me right away when I started reading the book and I started watching videos and I read the book and I listened to their presentation at ABCA the beginning of last month, and it just clicked because I remember as a player, trying to get that hip shoulder separation and trying to force it, right? And it just did not feel comfortable. It did not feel right. And then I watched teammates who, man, this feels so great. And I'm like, man, it didn't feel great to me. Why does it not? And then I was basically told, you got your hip mobility and this and that. Um, but that's the crazy thing is that no, that's my motor preference. My motor preference is I need to be. It would if I was trying to force the hip shoulder separation, it would be like me trying to change to how I cross my arms, right? It doesn't make sense. How about I just optimize myself according to my motor preferences? And that's kind of what I'm diving into in these videos. So be on the lookout for that. It's, I mean, it's, I mean, if you're a former player, you get it right away. If you're like a former player at like a high level in college or pro ball, you get it right away because you spent so many hours training your swing and training, especially as a pro, you're really like you're trying to fix you're making minor adjustments that you think are gonna give you a big result. And for all of us, whether you're a pitcher or a hitter, there was just certain things you would like, oh, I'm gonna try that, and then you're like, man, it doesn't feel right. It feels weird. And that was so like for me, it clicked instantly because I'm like, basically what they said in the presentation, they're like, we've done a pretty good job at development wise for terrestrials. Because we talk about ground force, we talk about hip shoulder separation, and terrestrials, generally speaking, those are things they excel at. They said, well, one thing we've done terrible is how to train aerials. And what Matt Swope even says this, the head coach of Maryland, he's like the aerials are the guys as coaches that we like can't figure out. We're like, we don't like how it looks. It doesn't look right. You're not going to like how they look. And these are the guys we like most of us could not figure out how to fix. And actually, we weren't even fixing them. We were breaking them in some regards because we're trying to make them to hit and throw, pitch like a terrestrial, even though they're an aerial. And so that was me, right? Um, Derek Jeter is a famous aerial. And if you watch my like bat path and Derek Jeter's bat path, almost identical with how our bats move as we're loading and everything. Um, and so again, it was like, and Derek Jeter was famously known, like famously in baseball circles, was like a guy like don't teach him how to hit like Jeter. Like that's just how he hits. Well, he's an aerial, right? So it looks weird. Uh, and again, that probably hurt me in today's biomechanic era because a lot of those biomechanic people that started kind of taking over, um, hitting coordinator jobs in the minor leagues and everything like that, probably looked at my swinger and were like, we can't fix this guy. This guy, yeah, he hits for high average every year and he's had a lot of success, but yeah, that's not going to play at the big league level just looking at a swing. Right. So that probably hurt me. Good book. You will need to read it a couple times. 100. Yeah. I mean, you definitely are going to have to refer back to it. So like bookmark it, highlight certain pages. It's definitely one that you're going to have to refer back to 100%. Got to pull up my little boy while my wife's picking up my other one. Okay. But guys, here's the schedule, and I want to know what you guys think of this. So on Friday, Clemson, Oklahoma State. I'm planning on at 12 p.m. I'm planning on doing a watch party for that. Um, I need to see what other times because the unfortunate thing is this: there will be some late games. So A&M's playing at 7 p.m. against Elon. Vandy is playing 8 p.m. against Grand Canyon. TCU's playing at 9 p.m. Texas is playing Louisville at 8 p.m. So we may be able to do a couple of these. What I'm planning on doing is the 12 p.m. Oklahoma State Clemson game. Watch party that. So we're all going to be watching the game, chatting it up. And then maybe at 8 p.m. Eastern later with the Texas Louisville game. So we'll see. Is that something you guys are going to be interested? I know you guys have said, yeah, you guys want to do that. Let's see here. Let me pull up my calendar real quick. Cougs versus Minute. Oh, we got some more. 1 second, guys. Let me fix my. Actually, I also have some pretty exciting news. Just so you guys, fill you guys in. You guys are my you guys are my loyal base. Let me put this in my calendar real quick. Today at okay. All right, it's in there. All right, let's get to your questions. I'll tell you guys the exciting announcement. Read it this week. And being a physical therapist who deals with baseball injuries and movement, this book is a must read. Yeah, I mean, like this probably, again, David, in your profession, this probably makes a whole lot of sense too, because you're like, man, this guy has, you'll see guys, and again, and under the before motor preferences, if you're just thinking pure biomechanics, you know that purely in a pure biomechanics lens, the more external rotation a pitcher can get is probably going to enhance his velocity. But it should help with injury prevention. But if you're dealing with an aerial, he may have zero external. I have zero external rotation. Like this is, if you guys can see, I have basically, I can't turn all the way because I'm against a wall. But I mean, that's my external rotation, guys. Like I can't, my left arm, I have crazy internal rotation. I mean, it's just like, I have really good internal rotation, no external rotation. It's 12 p.m. Eastern, I believe. I'll have to check. I'll check though, Coog. But if you're a physical therapist, you're like, man, this guy's got no external rotation. There may be issues, but then you never have to deal with it. You never have any. Like I never had any shoulder issues. So it starts explaining certain things where you're like, that doesn't make sense. Why is he not? And aerials are always asymmetric. They have deliveries that look like they're going to cause a lot of issues, and then they're fine. So just yeah, I mean, I imagine David for you, you're like, oh man, this makes so much sense, right? That's what it was for me. I started looking into it. I'm like, this just makes sense. Cougs versus Minnesota. Canes, who y'all have? Niagara, big test. They made the tournament last year and we didn't. Yeah, so technically, like, yeah, they're you guys are the underdogs, right? 12 p.m. game sounds great. I'm more excited for that 8 p.m. game, though. I will be at the Miami game during that time, though. Yeah, I mean, I figure most guys are going to. Afternoon game sounds good to me. Well, I mean, the issue for the afternoon for me is obviously I'm working with that high school team, so I leave my house like about 2:45 most days, 2:45 just to get there. So I mean, we're gonna figure out the schedule. I mean, we're trying to feel it out right now. And certainly as it gets later in the season, that Friday game is going to be at 7. You're going to have later games, so it'll be easier for us to do stuff later. 12 p.m. Central. I think it's. Let me look. I think it's adjusted for me. I think it's 12 p.m. Eastern. It's 12 p.m. Eastern. So it's 1 p.m. Central in Texas is when the game is being played. It's at Globe Life. David, you're 100% correct. Complete eye opener. Yeah, I mean, 100. I mean, that's exactly what I felt. It was just like when you've dealt with athletes like you have for I don't know how long you've been doing it, but for a long time, I'm guessing. Um, and when you were a player for a long time, like myself, you just like it's like one of those things you read and you're just that makes so much sense. Oh, that's why that drill I didn't work for me, or that's why this drill really worked for me, even though most guys didn't work for. Graham, Randy Johnson and Zach Guyen have to be aerial guys. They stand so tall in delivery. Yeah, that's a good indicator. Is that back leg? Like your terrestrials are very like drop and drive, so they really sink into that back leg. Like Tim Hudson, for example, if you watch his back leg, I mean, it was like he's so back and he's so much in that back leg. So like Tim Hudson to me, just in a very again, I'm not an expert on this. I'm very like have very general knowledge, but from watching um, like Tim Hudson, when my dad was the general manager for the Atlanta Braves and assistant GM for a long time. Just remember watching him for so many years, and like he's definitely terrestrial. Randy Johnson would be I think, an example of an aerial horizontal mover because he's everything's coming this way, right? Whereas you may have a guy who's a vertical, like everything works better, and then there's motor shoulder. Like there's so many stuff there's so many things we got to get into. But if you ever notice a pitcher who's like he doesn't really look like he pulls down with his front side or pulls across with his front side, as I just nail my mic really hard, that's because his motor shoulder is probably in his throwing arm. Now, if you see a guy who's like pulls with that front side, that's a motor shoulder front side guy. So a non-motor shoulder lead shoulder is kind of just a counterbalance. It's not really creating any force because all the forces being created back here. I mean, we're going to cover it, right? I don't want to get too in the weeds, but we're going to talk about it. What is the schedule for your team? And are the games on NFHS? Dude, I don't even really know. High school, our first game is tomorrow. I mean, our season ends, I think playoffs start like kind of around end of April, beginning of May. We typically have like 2 games to 3 games a week. But it's going to be, I can, Canes, I'll send you it. Versus Aroldis Chapman, he gets in his legs so much. Yeah. Yeah. So it's like what you do. I mean, you just like, you really can just find slow-mo video of a lot of these really good players that we all know and even as from a surface level understanding of all this stuff, you can start picking out, okay, aerial, associated, or, stuff like that. And you start to understand, like, the thing is, like I said, there's a lot of these categories, but even after a few, you're like, you can kind of start to understand how they function and things that will help them versus things that may be negative for them. My son is a terrestrial, and after reading this book, it's so obvious. Totally changed his training and our methods and approach to hitting and catching. Yeah, so One of the things that I um, like, what stood out for me when, and maybe in one of the videos that Matt did, and he talked about how aerials, like they will not like being in a deep squat position. They won't be able to get into a deep squat. It's very uncomfortable for them. Dude, that was the story of my life, my whole professional career, and still now. Like on the squat day, I'm just watching guys that can like go all the way down to their ankles almost, and I'm like barely able to get down to parallel. And it was always kind of labeled as like, oh, you got bad hip mobility, or actually, you have bad ankle mobility. You know, we need to fix that. And dude, I spent so much time. I can't say this enough. I spent so much time on my hip mobility and my ankle mobility, just like throughout the day. I just get into an ankle stretch, hip mobility stretches before and after workouts. And when I tell you I saw no difference in my ability to like actually get into what is considered a good squat form, and then I hear this presentation, and I'm like, oh, makes sense. I'm an aerial. Like I'm just never gonna. It's not something I'm ever going to be good at. Is like a traditional squat. Coog, how do you all send info to each other? YouTube has DMs, or on X on Twitter. My my name on Twitter is at Kyle P Wren. So if you guys ever have information about, like, you heard something, college baseball or whatever, you can send it to me. So guys, we're actually really exciting as we're talking about motor preference. I'm actually meeting with the motor preference guys tomorrow over Zoom. Um, David Janest, who's one of the founders of Motor Preference Experts, he saw my first YouTube video and really loved it. You could see on X, he kind of retweeted it, quoted it, and talked about how he loved the video and everything. And then they got in contact with me after I responded a little bit. They DM me, got in contact. So I'll meet with those guys tomorrow. So it should be interesting. I don't know what it's going to be about or anything like that. Um, but that's exciting. So get to talk to those guys really just about, like, to me, it could be about anything, but just getting to talk about really what I see as, again, I mean, I'm not an expert in this, but from just everything I've read and everything I've watched, it just is screaming to my instincts that this is the way forward in the game, and the way forward in training and optimization and everything like that. And again, I just kind of wish I had known about this in 2014 or 15 when I was getting started with my professional career, or 2013. So to me, it's like I can't wait. I'm excited to do it and get to talk to those guys. One second, guys. I got to respond to an email. Let's see. Just checked on X and I'm not verified to do so. What do you have to be verified? At Kyle P Wren is my um is the name. You doing a video? You do it? Yeah, doing a video with those guys. I don't know what I mean, they just wanted to talk with me. Could possibly be doing that. Like, don't get me wrong, I'd love to like fly up to their facility and just get a full like collision course in motor preference experts, and their process and how they measure everything and how they identify um, the different guys. Don't get me wrong, like I would love for that. I don't know if that's what's going to happen. I don't know if they just want to kind of talk, and I don't know, but we'll find out tomorrow. Motor preferences is a thing that could really frustrate a player who has coaches that won't grasp the concept. 100%, Graham. That's like you hit the nail on the head. It's And again, what like traditionally, it's like if you're a terrestrial, most of like the common biomechanic drills that are being taught are going to work for you, generally speaking. But if you're an aerial, what's happening for a lot of aerials is they're basically being forced, or not necessarily forced. I guess that's how you would frame it. But if you don't really know what the difference is between aerial and terrestrial, you're just trying to optimize an aerial in your own viewpoint, and you're basically what you're doing is you're basically forcing them into a terrestrial movement pattern, right? You're trying to force them to move like a terrestrial, and this is what like David and Matt say is that you, there's different like the guys at Driveline, everything like that. They know how to make you throw harder, but the problem is if you're an aerial and you're being forced into hey, more external rotation, more hip shoulder separation, like that's probably the reason we're seeing so many arm injuries. That's probably why we're seeing so many pitchers go down with arm injuries is because you got a bunch of aerials who are being trained to be terrestrials, and uh, when you're moving outside of your motor preferences, the risk of injury is going to be increased. The last question about the book: are aerials typically slap hitters slash contact hitting guys? Going to order the book today? No, no. I mean, Vlad Guerrero Jr. is an aerial, right? Vlad Guerrero Jr. is an aerial. It has nothing to do with like your power output or anything like that. Like they've actually run the tests in the books. They talk about it and in some videos. Like being a terrestrial versus an aerial is not going to lead to throwing harder or anything like that. It's just a question. Basically, the way you move is different. So the drills you need to do, the way you work out, the way you stretch, everything is different if you're an aerial, generally speaking. And it's like a spectrum. So you could be very terrestrial, very aerial, or you could be like mostly aerial or mostly terrestrial. Or I mean, and Matt talks about this, I think, but there's some guys who are very hard to diagnose. I think that's probably a small percentage of guys, but that are very hard to diagnose. Um, so it's not like again, it's not like some guys may be aerial, but they may have a few categories where they're not what an aerial would typically be. So it's just that's why there's so many categories because they really try to nail down exactly the motor preference to uh, with as many tests as possible, so they feel like they're very as accurate as they can be. Can you put your X tag in the chat? Yeah, Kane's just did it. I'll do it again. There we go. Um, thanks. Let me try that name. Yeah, try it. I'll let you know if I get anything. All right, I think yeah, you guys, man, you guys all followed me all at once. Dude, you guys been watching this stream for like weeks and yet followed me on Twitter, on X. Guys, come on, guys, come on. Follower count going up though. Hey, appreciate it. All right, so how would you recommend a player who reads the book and understands it deal with a coach who doesn't? Dude, that is again, this is the most difficult part about this is that motor preferences is in very much so the infant stages of one, its notoriety. Like most people, if you told them motor preferences, they'd be like, "What?" Second of all, because it's in its infancy stage, most coaches who, and again, I'm stereotyping and I'm generalizing, but most of your like, let's say, travel ball facility coaches, everything, aren't going to know what it is, and they're probably going to look at it as a gimmick. They're probably going to look at it. Me personally, the reason I don't look at it as a gimmick is because I played for at such a high level for a long time that I instantly, as soon as I heard them speak for like 10 minutes, I was like, yeah, that sounds right. So to answer your question, Graham, it's going to be hard, right? And maybe you go to the coach and say, hey, I'm I'm interested in seeing what your thoughts are on this book, and just say, hey, it's 100 pages. Read it. Let me know what you think. Um, and again, if your son's a terrestrial, you're probably okay because generally speaking, that's kind of the types of drills that are used by most people are going to be beneficial for terrestrials, generally speaking. Again, but if your son's an aerial, that's when it becomes a little bit like, yeah, I don't know if I don't know if we can do it that way. It just doesn't work for him like that. But I don't really know how to answer your question, Graham, because again, like how do you convince somebody like, hey, I want you to coach him like this if they have no idea what it is and they probably are gonna look at it and be like, what is that? You know? It's telling me I have to get Twitter Blue to do so. What? I'll see if I can DM you right here. There you go. I DM'd you. So see if you can DM me now. Just followed. Yep. Yep. Only Canes. Canes is the only one. Yeah. I mean, we are old men. So, well, some of you guys, I mean, these guys, these high school kids I work with, they think I'm old. They're like, dude, you're a millennial? I'm like, yeah. My son is a terrestrial, but I really thought it would be good for you to address the other guys. Oh, yeah. So, I mean, to me, dude, it's hard to say, right? And I don't know, maybe if you try to get a motor preference, and that's the thing, I don't know, I don't even know exactly how you sign up to get like a motor preferences assessment done. Do you have to go up to Maryland? Do they have other places that do it? Um, so to answer your question, Graham, maybe I ask that tomorrow. Maybe I ask that in our meeting, when my meeting with those guys tomorrow, on just kind of what they recommend and let you guys know. But it is one of those things that, again, it's like when the analytics and the launch angle kind of revolution started. If you were working on that type stuff and you went to kind of a traditional coach, they would kind of look at you like, what? I'm not doing that, you know? And it's going to be kind of the same thing, I think, right? Unless your coach is really kind of forward thinking and trying to be, optimize himself as a coach, which is what I'm all about. Like I just want to learn as much as I can. So I'm as knowledgeable about what is the cutting edge of baseball development, just like I'm on the edge of kind of what's going on in recruiting and working with my clients and our team's clients and trying to keep you guys as up to date as possible on kind of what is going on in recruiting and what are coaches looking for and how are different positions being impacted, year by year based on changes. Anybody who thinks it's not true has not done any high level sports. We've all seen the teammate who trains his butt off but just can't do something the coach is asking him to do. Yeah, and then we've all played with the guy who just like looks super funky and is just a stud. And you're like, man, I could never mimic that. Um, and so like we've all had experiences with guys like that, and that's really all you need. And like David, who mentioned earlier, who's a physical trainer and like a trainer, uh, like does a lot of rehab and stuff. Like he's like, man, I read the book and it was just like, yeah, this makes total sense, right? Because he's in the same type situation where he's working on these really high level athletes, and he's like, man, certain things are kind of people are outliers, and there's really no rhyme or reason for it. This fills that gap of like, oh, why is this guy able to get away with these type of movements and not experience any kind of pain, whereas the guy next to him is trying to, he's having the exact opposite where it happened to him. Yeah, for sure. Ask those cats. I think they would love to do a video collab. Yeah, I would love to too. I mean, I like best case scenario, I would love to like get to fly up there and see how they run things and film it and talk through it. Maybe even I mean, I haven't swung a bat in, except for hitting fungos in, shoot, man, I don't even like saying this, like 6 years. Seriously, like that. And it doesn't even feel like it's been 6 years since I last, you know, stepped on a field as an athlete, as a player. So it may be rough, but that's best case scenario for me. Like I'd love to do that. I'd love to do it, one, because it'd be great for our channel, but I also think it would be great for motor preferences, because I think that's kind of what they're up against right now, is just kind of the status quo of going to driveline, and biomechanics labs, generally speaking, are, the way Matt would put it is that they're basically they're all about maximization instead of optimization. And so that's what they're fighting against, is like these, everyone knows about these biomechanics labs that are really popular, and people do get really good results from them depending on the kind of mover you are. So you're kind of, again, this is kind of the next step. This is kind of the next evolution of biomechanics, just making it even more individualized. But that's what they're up against. So I'd love to give exposure for them too, and that's kind of what I am doing by going through the book and trying to explain to you guys kind of how I look at it and what the book is saying. But we'll see. We'll see. It's up to them, right? It's up to them. And but I'm excited about it. I'm also going up. I'm also going and going to be speaking. My first speaking appearance is going to be. I'll start talking about it more in detail as we get closer. It's going to be in June for a travel organization, um, and just talk to them about how to. What a lot of guys are missing now, and it's even easier for me to see this now that I'm working with the high school team, helping out, is that there's so many high school they just have no idea what is waiting for them at the next level. They have no idea the they're going from being an alpha on the team they play to just like just another normal guy on the college team, and they have no track record. So guys, generally speaking, they have no idea what they're stepping into now when they get on a college campus, and um, so I'm going to talk to this organization, their team, and their teams and their players about the mindset they need to have, how they need to prepare now for college baseball. So that's gonna be fun, and that'll be in June. So I'm gonna film that too. So that'll be content for sure. David, it's actually changing the type of rehab I will do with my kids now that I know how they move. Kyle has no external rotation. Before reading this book, I would have given him a ton of external rotation exercise or external. Why can't I read right now? I would have given him a ton of exercises to increase his external rotation. Yeah, exactly. Because that's the only thing that was out there. It's like, well, if you have more external rotation, you're gonna be able to do this better and do this better, and you're gonna throw harder and everything like that. But now, if you're like, well, Kyle's an aerial, he didn't have any external rotation. Okay, it won't let me send you a DM. Can you please message me? Yeah, let me see. I like your X handle. Here you go. Perfect. And Coog got the DMs working perfect. Yeah, you guys are I want to be like Varys from Game of Thrones, and you guys are like my sparrows. What does he call my little birds? And you guys are all across college baseball, and you're getting the rumors and everything, and you just feed them to me. I'm going to send that book to my brother and his business partner. We have a recovery physical. Dude, I also can't get rid of this cough for like a month, killing me. We have a recovery physical. I'm sure that was autocorrected down here in Miami Lakes, and we have tons of NBA and NFL guys working out there every day. Dude, yeah, send it to them. That's sick. So it's like a rehab place, like a physical therapy type place down there in Miami. It would be detrimental for him because of the type of mover he is. Yes, 100%. Would this also work with NBA and NFL guys? Yes, it's. I mean, it's every sport. This became very popular, and this has been done in Europe with the pro soccer teams for I don't know exactly what the time frame is, but for a pretty long time. That's where all the data and studies have been done is in Europe. And again, like Matt and David Genest and Matt are the first guys um, to bring this basically stateside. So in this in the U.S., like nobody knows what this is. I think even on like an earlier YouTube video, maybe like 7 or 8 months ago, someone commented like, "What do you think of Matt Swope and motor preference experts?" And I was like, "I don't know." I was like, I have no idea." Um, so that was kind of the first step for me was kind of looking into it a little bit, and then seeing them at ABCA, I was like, "Oh wow, this is different." Yes, I'll send you the link on Twitter. Okay, okay. Um, but yeah, guys, it's just like I feel like this is one of those subjects I could talk about literally all day. But I mean, we're 4 days away from 4 days away from having college baseball back, baby, back. I mean, it's just like can't get any better. Getting a lot of emails right now. All right, let's see here. All right, I gotta set something else up on my calendar real quick. I'm so busy, guys. You just don't even know. I'm just so busy. Call. All right. Um, we're back now. All right, guys. Remember, if you want help in the recruiting process and want to work with myself or one of our advisors all across the country, scan this QR code out, fill the form. We'll give you a free eval of where you're at in the process, what we think you could potentially get to, obviously, and then how we can help, what our process looks like, why we've been so successful. We had over 100, I think 100. Just hey, we'll go to our X account. We got it right there. Okay, Elite Sports. Remember our company, Elite Sport. I can't talk now either. Our company's tag on X is at Elite Sports ADV. So follow there. But we had 128 commitments in 2024, and just 5.2 million in scholarship money awarded. So kind of if you run the numbers, almost every one of our guys got 40 45-ish thousand dollars of scholarship money. So if you're looking for help in the recruiting process, just fill out that form on the Get Recruited QR code right there, and we'll meet with you and kind of talk about what we can do. So I'm going to show you guys the tweet from David Genest, who is one of the Motors Preference Experts founders. So right here, eyeballs. Thanks to Elite Sports Advising to have so many good words about motor preferences, Matt Swope, myself, and the book. Love the YouTube video. And he's French, so he when you hear him talk, it's sometimes kind of hard to understand what he's saying. But so he has been studying this stuff. Primitive reflexes specialist, biology, physiology, biomechanics, psychology. Like Matt Swope, the head coach at Maryland, dude, he makes all of his players take personality tests as well. So he understands how they respond to feedback, how they respond to certain differences in feedback, you yelling at the guy or you have to be a little more gentle with the guy. So he's all in to this individualization of how he coaches each player. And then me and David kind of commented back and forth a little bit. I said, loving the book so far. My instincts just tell me this is right. And then somebody, did this, whatever. But that's kind of how everything got started. I just kind of woke up. I forget when this was posted. I guess he lives in Canada now, but he's French. And you can tell when he talks, you can tell. But really knowledgeable. Let me see here. Sorry, guys. Okay, our player said that Manny Machado has been working with Cuvée at third base with his defense. They've been training against our younger pitchers for 1AB each to test him. That's good. I mean, Manny. I mean, I played against Manny in at East Coast Pro in 2000, the summer of 2009. And yeah, he was a stud. And I remember Javi Baez, same thing. I remember playing against him, and a kid that went to my high school he was a really good pitcher. He went to Georgia Tech with myself and my brother. His name was Jonathan Roberts, and he was low 90s at that point, 6'3", really good run and sink on his fastball, hammer breaking ball. Didn't have much of a changeup, but ended up being a pretty good bullpen arm later in his career at Georgia Tech. And so, but at the high school level, he just dominated everybody. Nobody could touch him. And we're in summer ball, and I remember Javi Baez, I think, went 4 for 4 off him with a wood bat, and it was lasers. And I remember thinking, yeah, man, this guy's pretty good. This guy's pretty good. And then of course, he ended up being what he is. And then Francisco Lindor, who was also in that draft, I believe, I was teammates with him in the Arizona Fall League. So I've played against a bunch of really good shortstops. And I will say that's the part of Baez's game that got so. I mean, he was very underrated as a defender. I mean, he could make some plays that just looked that were ridiculous and make it look so easy. He was just, I mean, crazy impressive defender. Okay. All right, let's see what else we got. We're going to have a lot of stuff coming out soon because remember, uh, wait, what is this? All right, let me show you a video. I want to show this video because I think it does a good job of illustrating kind of what a controlled forward move is, and this is for all my hitters. Um, like one thing I've noticed since working with high school players. All right, so this isn't his stance, right? He's in a very narrow start, which I actually really like because it makes it to where you don't have a massive negative move backwards and your weight shifting backwards and then forward again. You can kind of just gather on that back hip and not have to like rock backwards and then go forward. One of the things yeah, there was static, dude. I heard the same thing. It's gone. My camera that I have up on my son that's napping. That's what that is, probably. Um, it's back. Is it back still? Let me move this over here. Let me know. Let me know, Canes. Is it back? I don't really hear it anymore. Um, but what I find with most high school hitters is like they want to no stride. They're so scared of. There's like very little guys who can no stride and actually move correctly. Um, I'm not a big fan of no stride. It's not that doesn't mean that some people can't have a lot of success doing it, but just generally speaking, most guys I see that no stride, it really affects how they create space and how they can stay on the baseball. Just watch Drew Burris, who's pretty much considered maybe the best player in college baseball this year. Let's watch how he leg kicks, gathers. Does he gain ground? Does he just stay on his back leg? Let's see what it looks like. All right, so right, you see that coil, right? He's coiled. He's not rocking backwards. He's coiling around the back hip. I mean, and he's loaded in here, man. He is locked in here. Look at this leg. Now he's gaining ground. Lands at a 50-50 position, right? He's heads right over the middle of his body. 50-50 position. Ends up hitting this, I think, 113 off the bat. Um, or this is 105. His max exit velocity last year was. Oh wait, dude, guys. I'm an idiot. I didn't start the stream. Okay, so here we go. This is slow mo of Drew Burris. Let me see if I can back up, like spread it out a little bit more. Here we go. All right, there we go. Look how he does not. It's not like he's rocking back. He's coiling around the back leg here. He's loaded now. I'd actually love to watch Drew Burris and try to diagnose if he's a terrestrial or an aerial. I feel like typically your stockier guys, because Drew Burress is like a pretty stocky guy, um, kind of tend to be terrestrials. But I like the cool thing is like you just watch one swing, you can't really tell. Even though watching him, let's see here. I mean, he's pretty disassociated. I mean, his shoulders are still pretty locked, and his belt's pointing towards first base. But he's not like it's not crazy. It's not like a yeah. His hands do not drift at all. Um, but he has enough separation from his hands, right? So he like what I see a lot of guys do is they keep their hands really close to their helmet, and like that almost makes it impossible for you to get any depth back here in your swing, and so you end up coming from right here, and now you're steep and you have no depth, and so if you're late, you're basically hitting it straight in the ground or popping it straight up or just swinging missing. Like see how his bat gets on plane. That was not the slow-mo version. See how his bat's on plane back here? And he's a little bit out front. Like he ends up getting a little bit out front. But he just has a ridiculously adjustable, uh, really good bat path. It's not too vertical. It's not too flat. It's adjustable. Like there's a reason he had the year he had last year. I want there to be some like when you're forward move, I want there to be some kind of gap between my shoulder and my hands. Because if my hands stay really tight, again, you doesn't mean you can't have success, but you have to move almost 100% correctly to the pitch, and most guys don't. He can lift out of that hand position when he wants to. Yeah. Yes. I mean, I will say for a freshman, he may have been the best off speed hitter I had ever seen for a freshman. I mean, he just like you threw a hanger, he was going to make you hurt. And most freshmen, you just don't face good enough off speed in high school to really have an idea of how to do that and be confident doing it. And most freshmen just get thrown a lot of fastballs because they're freshmen. But because he was so special, I thought that was going to be the learning curve for him was like when he starts getting thrown way more off speed than fastballs, is he still going to be as good? And he was like better, which it goes to one, his approach. He knew to change his approach quickly, but he also has a very adjustable path that allows him to hit off speed way better than most people. All right. All right, let's see here. All right. All right, let's look at some of these D1 stuff before we go for the day. Top 100 relievers. I don't think we've covered this. Obviously, this is, Jay Johnson actually talked about this, LSU's head coach, recently, and talked about how important, let me pull this up, the having some, like a bullpen ace is what it's being called, because it's the stopper. It's, you can call it a bullpen ace, you can call it a stopper, but it's that guy that if you bring him in, he's getting the job done. And how important that is in college baseball, because most guys in the bullpen, again, you're going to have, like, typically your best pitchers are going to be in your starting rotation. But you need some guys that are weapons in the bullpen that can come in with no outs, bases loaded, and get you out of the jam. And so these are we'll see the teams so NC State's got the number one reliever in the country, according to D1 Baseball, right? And we talked about in the rankings, NC State's starting pitching has a lot of question marks. Offense has a ton of question marks, but they're still like a number 12 or 13 team. And it was basically heavily due to their bullpen strength. So we'll see as we go through here how many guys NC State has. But number one guy, 47 innings pitched to 56 Ks. I mean, they must be looking for thinking he's going to make a big jump. But what are some other young players from last college baseball season you really like? Excuse me. Okay. So, like, this guy's one of them, this Jacob Duden guy. Like, you've got to remember, these numbers are from a freshman. And again, the walks, I'm not big on the walks. He's got good strikeout numbers. But to have that high of walks and only a 4.5, like, the stuff is legit. Forward at Virginia, to me, is going to be really good. He had a great freshman year. I mean, like, again, Daniel Cuvée, like, we're talking about superstar caliber players if they continue to develop and kind of go the way we think. But those are a few of them. All right, so Cole Triba from Santa Barbara. Santa Barbara is going to have a great pitching staff. North Carolina. So again, ACC leading the way with some of these top relievers. Miller Green from Vanderbilt. This is a tough one for any Georgia Tech fan, because he was committed to Georgia Tech until the former pitching coach was fired. And then he used that to get out of his, NL or national letter of intent, and ended up going to Vanderbilt. And these were his numbers as a freshman. Like, just look at these numbers, dude. Look at these numbers for a freshman in the SEC. 2.9, 31 innings, 34 strikeouts, 8 Ks. So this was a kid that was originally committed to Georgia Tech, and then, that changed. Daniel Cuvée, AJ Garcia, Nick Robert, Henry Ford. Yeah, I mean, they're all really good. I saw Cuvée hitting at the Game Changer Bat event. He looks like he got a lot physically larger than last year. He's going to be a beast. Yeah, he's going to be a beast. All right, NC State with another guy. 41 Ks in 29 innings, only 11 walks. Woo-wee. How'd this guy get knocked at number one? Louisville. Clemson. LSU, Arkansas, UCF, Central Arkansas. Stanford, ACC, Virginia, ACC, Wake Forest, ACC. A&M, Alabama, Mississippi State, East Carolina, Tennessee, Tulane, Duke. This guy was gross last year too, and he's back. Stetson, Oral Roberts, Miami Canes. Georgia, BYU, William Mary, Auburn, Ole Miss, Wake Forest, Texas Tech, Coastal Carolina, Florida State, Kentucky, Troy, UC Davis, NC State again, Northeastern, Southern Miss, Illinois, Chicago, Arizona, Florida, South Carolina, UCLA, Oregon, Troy, Arizona, Army, Kennesaw State, Wichita State, Wake Forest, North Carolina, VCU, Grand Canyon, Indiana, Vandy, West Virginia, East Carolina. It's because of one reason, Buck. His name is the greatest strength and conditioning coach in the nation, Nick Soto, baby. Glazing. Thought you were going to say 8 bananas a day, but I'll believe you. It's a gallon of milk per day, is what it is. Last year we looked like little boys, thanks to home run H.R. Powell. No disrespect to you, H.R. Powell, if you are watching. Vandy, West Virginia, East Carolina, Auburn, Duke. So, I mean, if you're looking at this list, guys, it's basically vast majority SEC and ACC. And then some really good mid-majors like, Southern Miss here. But then you got North Carolina again, Virginia, Texas State, Nebraska, Oklahoma, California, Florida State. Big, if you're a Georgia Tech fan, you don't have one guy on here. They do have a lot of young guys that are going to be out of the pen. Canes. Now we have a Major League Baseball strength and conditioning coach who trains Manny and 20 other pros. Yeah, so I mean the bullpen's going to be dominated. These bullpen pitchers are dominated by the SEC and the ACC. I mean, again, we'd have to. I don't want to spend the time counting it up, but I think it'd be very close of the percentage of pitchers in this list from the ACC and the SEC, with a slight edge to the ACC for having a lot of them here in the top 20 or so. But again, just as important to have those guys in the bullpen that you can really depend on to come out and get you out of a jam or close the game down. And what you're seeing, you really don't have a closer anymore, because what you have is excuse me, golly. Oh, man, dude. Okay. Because if let's say you have a designated closer. He's your best pitcher in your bullpen. Well, in the 7th inning, they have runners on first and second, no out. It's a 1-run game. You just going to hope your bullpen guy gets out of that jam, or are you going to use your best guy in that situation? And that's what everyone's doing in college baseball now, is you have a stopper, and he's kind of the one that puts out the fires. And it's way more important that you have him in with, in the 7th inning when the game is on the line there, than like waiting to pitch him in the 9th, because, well, if you don't get those guys off the bases and get out of that inning, you're going to be pitching in the 9th down by a couple runs. Miami will have a lot of guys on that list next year. Miami's closer, you. Yeah, we need to stay healthy, and we need to stay healthy with a good bullpen. We had 3 or 4. Golly, we had 3 or 4 starters get hurt. Hard to win games like that. Oh yeah, dude. If you have that many starters get hurt, you're done. I mean, you're there's just no way you can't cover enough innings. It's just impossible, because your bullpen guys aren't built up enough to cover those innings. I mean, that's just how it is. We've been spoiled by what we had. That closer. Yeah, you guys have had some really. I mean, what was the lefty kid threw from down here? What was his name? Palmquist. He was nasty. We were up by 7 versus Texas in the 7th and lost. We won Friday night. It was like that most conference weekends. Unfortunately, that's the norm for a lot of college teams, because their bullpens are just not good enough. And so, like you said, Coog, like your team is up. I mean, that was like when I was coaching at Georgia Tech. Like when we counted it back, the amount of games with like a 5+ run lead in like the 8th inning or later that we lost, we would have like basically we would have won the ACC in the regular season. Um, so it's just a matter of like that's why having a really good bullpen is so important because in this climate, a 5 or 6 run lead in the 8th, 7th, or 8th inning is not what it was when I was playing. If when I was playing in the dead ball era, if you were if you were up by 6 runs in the 7th inning, shoot, game was pretty much over. But it's not that way anymore. So like I think part of it is a lot of coaches were used to recruiting under that old model, under that old kind of balls doesn't go anywhere, offense is way down. And so you really, like I said, you didn't need a bunch of really good pitchers. You just needed a couple good starters, a couple good bullpen arms. Then the rest of the guys are serviceable, you're fine. Well, in today's era, you don't just need good starters. You need like 4 or 5, 6 really good bullpen arms that you just know what you're going to get. And I think that's still kind of being figured out by some schools. In my time from being a fan, 2013 to 2025, we've had 6 of our closers drafted in the first 3 rounds. Yeah, that's pretty good. Carson Palmquist, yeah, he was nasty. I know how I would have hit against him. I would have just got on top of the plate and just hoped that it kind of domed him up. Jared, what are you eating? Takis? No, I have a I have a like my trash snack that I love is like the Flamin' Hot Cheeto fries. If you know what those are, like you get them from the gas station, and these are the Cheeto fries ranch edition. So I haven't had these before. They're pretty good, but they're kind of like Takis, kind of. But I've tried Takis. I don't like the lime. I like how spicy they are, but I don't like the lime. It just doesn't. This is not my thing. Okay, let's see here. A 1 to 2 run lead is safe when you have Kevin Kopps, Walters, Miami, Palmquist, Miami. Yeah, right. There's very few. Yeah, Jared, you weren't far off. You weren't far off. Um, and that's been since like college, man, high school. Just flaming hot Cheeto fries. Just eat the whole bag in 5 minutes. Terrible for you, but it's just like tastes good. Um, yeah, you're right, Canes, that even in this era, if you do have like a legit closer, like Marcus Stroman, he was at Duke when I was playing. He was a closer, and then his final year, he got moved to starting rotation. But there are those like just total lockdown closers that are just so much better than even the really good hitters in college game. So like the names you mentioned, those guys are able to just 1 to 2 run leads are pretty much safe. But besides that, man, everyone else is like a way below that. Jared says I wasn't far off. Yeah, someone's out there that he knows what he's talking about. My mouth will be on fire. Yeah, I mean, I kind of love that though. I love that feeling. I love the feeling of like it being spicy. I love spicy food. And I think part of that came from there used to be a tradition in Georgia Tech at the hotel that we stayed at when you would play Clemson. So my freshman year, we played at Clemson, so we stayed there. Like right next to the hotel, like maybe like a eighth of a mile walk was this wings place. I can't even remember what it was called. But like the strength coach would have all the freshmen and some of the older guys that were like starters. And you basically like, all right, like you're a starter. And he would order this hot wing that was called the manager's special. It was so spicy, it wasn't on the menu. And he would like make us each have to eat at least one. And I'm talking like so hot, like I had spice burn on my mouth. I like got in the shower when we got home. It was still burning. And then the shower, the water made it like even worse. So after you try one of those, like anything else just doesn't taste spicy. All right. I'm going to read a few more before we go here. Isn't college baseball now like MLB pre-80s where your top pitchers are starters, then your bullpen is whomever wasn't good enough to be a starter, especially with player movement? How can you build real bullpen arms? Well, it's about, I mean, really, you do have guys that now more than ever that I would say college baseball was like that when I was playing Buck, like in the early 2000s up to like 2014, 2015. Basically, your freshman, you maybe had a freshman starting on the midweek game, and then you had all the rest of the freshmen were in the bullpen. And like the freshman that performed the best that year, like if a spot or two open in the starting rotation, they were competing for that spot. So you're right. That's kind of how it was looked at before. But now, like you're recruiting specifically in the portal, like couple bullpen arms that you think can come in and be lockdown guys. So it definitely, you're right that it definitely used to be how college baseball recruiting and just like roster management uh, handled pitchers. It was like, oh, you were a freshman in the bullpen and you threw like a 2.7. You're going to get a chance to pitch on the weekend next year. And now it's like, well, you only have two pitches. You're probably not going to be a good starter. Or, we just value you more in the bullpen because the bullpen is really valuable now. Do the Pocky, let me look this up. I hope this doesn't this better not bring me up something I don't want to see. Oh, it's a Carolina Reaper chip. Yeah, that. The one chip challenge was an internet challenge in which participants had to eat one extremely spicy, I don't know how you say it, Pocky Carolina Reaper chip, and avoid eating or drinking anything afterwards. The challenge was initially marketed by Amplify snack brands before being sold to the Hershey Company. During the fall season from 2016 to 2023, the chip was sold in various packaging before being declared sold out. So they send you one chip and you eat it. I would definitely do it. Like I love spicy food. I've done spicy challenges before. It wouldn't be fun, but it does give you that. Like when you eat really spicy food, you get like a serious endorphin high. Like there is a point when the spice kind of after that initial like really hot phase, and then it becomes like kind of manageable, where you're just like, whoa. Do it during a stream. Maybe during one of the watch parties, I'll do it, Graham. I'm like 100% down. But what I'll need if I'm going to do that, I need you guys like spreading the word like massive because I need like 1,000 people watching. You know, that's not to say I wouldn't do it if there's not that many people. But if I'm going to do it live, and you're going to get to watch me suffer for however long, I need to know that you guys are putting in work and kind of spreading the message of like joining the stream. Yeah, yeah, I saw that. I actually just saw that the official strength debates. No, dude. That's just like what you have to understand is it's not PEDs. And I'll pull up what he's talking about so you guys can see it. Um, it's not PEDs. Like so, the guy I talked about who went to high school with me, Jonathan Roberts, who was a pitcher. Like he was ripped, and he was like 6'3", like 200 pounds. But what you have to understand, when you're like 19, 20, 21 years old, you're at like your peak testosterone levels, and you're in a college weight training program. So if you're eating enough and you're really working out hard, you're not going to put on a lot of fat. and you're just gonna look ripped. Like, dude, like half the guys on the team I played with looked like that. I looked like this, except my arms were smaller, right? I was ripped. I just no one would ever say I was on PEDs because I was I'm an ectomorph. I'm skinny, but I played with a lot of guys that look just like this. It's just about they're in a college weight training program and they're at peak testosterone for like most men. So, but he looks strong. He's bending that metal, and the metal bats do bend, right? So I mean that happens. All right, guys, I gotta go. Why is the bat melting or bending? You mean that's normal, man. There's so much torque is created by trying to you got to understand, like, you're taking that bat this way very quickly. So there is that slight bend in the metal bat. Same is true with the wood bat. Like the wood bats bend a little bit too when they're swung. So if he's like just at the point where he's initiating his swing, you are going to see that, especially if it's like a two-piece metal bat, it'll bend a little bit more. Like your ash wood is gonna with wood bats is gonna bend more because it's not as hard of a wood. And maple, it's not gonna have as much bend, but they both still do. All right, guys, I will see you tomorrow